Bodybuilding, for me, is like playing a game of chess. You have to know your body, and nobody can master your body more than you, right? A coach can't teach you suffering. Suffering is something that you're willing to endure. I mastered my body on all levels. I knew I should have won in one of those Mr. Olympias. They didn't give it to me, so you know what I'm gonna do now? I'm gonna go out and win every show in the world, and I'm gonna show the judges, and I'm gonna show all the people that I should have won at Mr. Olympia. So that's what I did. I had a point to prove. I was discovering the power of the mind, right? Whatever you believe you can achieve. I snapped, and I said, you know what? It's my opportunity to seize the moment. I was an amateur in 1990, and then I was a pro in 1991. It happened like that. The power of the brain, right? Visualization. Whatever you believe you can achieve, and I strongly believe that. When you're a kid and you lose your father within a matter of 2 weeks, right? There's no words or there's no explanations to where anybody can say anything to really make that make sense. When my father died, I was able to build a relationship with my real father. That was God, you know, the creator of all things. And it's one of those things that carry with you for the rest of your life. You become your environment, you know, how that affects you as a child. And I think it's helped mold me to who I am today. I think today people aren't free to create because they don't know what that is. They try to be like other people. They try to mimic like other people. Sometimes you can have too much love for something and you destroy it. Trust and believe in yourself no matter what you're going through, you know. Competition for life, competition to save souls, competition to help people make the world a better place, because I think it's too much pain and suffering and ignorance and wars and stuff going on. And I just want to tell people, hang in there, you know. Your life has a greater purpose than what people see.
Welcome to another episode of Spotlight Podcast. Over 4 million views, little less than 1 million hours of watch time. But there is only one problem. Less than 40% of you are actual subscribers to the channel. If I can ask you only one thing, please hit that subscribe button. My today's guest, bodybuilding icon, Kevin Levrone. Welcome to Spotlight Podcast. Welcome to Belgrade.
Thank you. Thank you. It's good to be here.
Is your first time in Serbia?
Serbia, no. But Belgrade, yes. Yeah.
How do you find it around here, Kevin?
Well, I look forward to coming, you know, because it's a break from America. The food, the people, the culture is what attracts me, you know. Very, very nice.
Your first childhood memories related to sports. Mm-hmm. Can you recall some of the first thoughts in your head? Oh, I want to be involved in sports of any kind?
Yeah, I mean, I think it started from school, you know, gym class in school, right? Mm. Like every kid, when they're young, they have recess and gym class in school, try to figure out who's the fastest, who can do the most push-ups and sit-ups and stuff like this. So I think that's when it originally started for me, when I was competing against other kids in school as a elementary school, you know, when you're young. So
in some of your previous interviews, you were talking about bullying in elementary school.
Today, they call it bullying. Back then, we were just boys challenging each other, you know, and I think that's what boys do. Young lions grow up to dominate the territory where they are, right? So I think the word bullying came in later, you know, 2000 and stuff like that. But I would say the greater part of challenging each other, right? As boys growing into teenagers and stuff. So we were very, very competitive, you know. I had 2 older brothers as well, so growing up around them, and then I had a lot of cousins as well. So we all get together and wrestle and see who was the strongest and stuff, you know, around the house, and just doing things that boys do, you know.
Of course. How was the Baltimore, Maryland, how is this environment for a young kid?
Today's Baltimore?
Yeah, back in your days.
Back in my days, well, I didn't grow up in Baltimore like Baltimore City. I grew up in Maryland, you know, so I grew up on a farm. We pretty much had a lot of animals horses, ducks, pigs, dogs, many animals that you could possibly think of. And my chore was every day was to wake up and feed the animals, right? So before I went to school, great environment, families, helping out one another in the area, in the neighborhood, and perfect environment for a child to grow up in until my father died. I think that's when everything kind of changed for me. Yeah,
1975. So like two most important dates.
Yeah, December the 17th, 1975. Yeah.
And how do you feel this changed you in a sense?
Well, when you're a kid and you lose your father within a matter of 2 weeks, right? There's no words or there's no explanations to where anybody can say anything to really make that make sense. You just adapt. It's one of those horrific things, and I think in everyone's life that changes them. And for me, I had to grow up quick, I had to learn how to work, had to learn how to help out around the house. So chores became work, I couldn't play sports in school because I had to come home and help my mother and, do work around the neighborhood to raise money and responsibilities at a very, very young age settled in, when my father died.
What was the father figure to you, Kevin, back in the days? Basically, your father was Italian roots, and some of the interviews I realized he was a humble family man, and you learned a lot of virtues from him, the way the man should behave. Yeah,
I think the most important thing is love. My father helped out a lot of people, so I think that trait right there. I never heard my father complain or yell at my mother. Or as six of us kids growing up, we never got beatings or anything like that, So it was just love, complete love. I think I've learned a lot. Just giving, caring about people. That's what my father was all about.
Learning about your faith, I kind of realized that your faith your road to faith is kind of non-linear, but the most of the faith you get was from your mother.
Yeah, I think the environment, again, my mother, she went to church. She took me to church. I was the youngest of six kids, right? So my mother, she always went to church, and she would take me. My two older brothers, they wouldn't go. They pretty much be hanging out with my father because they were teenagers. I was young, 10, 6, 7. So I grew up with that background of watching my mother pray, going to church, and I had to sing on the church choir. I was a deacon, junior deacon in church, and praying to God and seeing how praying to God and applying that to your life and then seeing a difference, right? I think that really helped me out because when my father died, I was able to pray and build a relationship with my real father. That was God, the creator of all things. And that was because of my mother instilled that in me. And it's one of those things that carry with you for the rest of your life, your upbringing, your environment. You become your environment, how that affects you as a child. Your response to that, you respond to it as you grow old and then to your adulthood lives, So that's kind of had a solid upbringing. And I think it's helped mold me to who I am today.
The first role model, if you can recall, who was the first role model related to sports or otherwise?
First role model? When you say role model, define that a little bit for me.
Yeah, the person that you would say, okay, this person I looked up to when it comes to fitness and bodybuilding.
Well, let's start off with, say, a human being that I never met, but I read his books a lot. It was Bruce Lee. Yeah, you're familiar with Bruce Lee, right? Yeah. Bruce Lee's philosophy and his outlook on life was just mind-blowing to me, because he was able to tap into a certain part of his brain to create his future by doing things that no one thought was possible. You know, like the one-arm push-up, you know, the 1-inch punch, you know, and I thought that was really, really fascinating. And the things that he, when he made movies, you know, he would move so fast during the filming that they had to try to slow the film down. And I thought it was really fascinating that, you know, you have an Asian guy, right, from China, and then he just was the first one that broke into the film industry in Hollywood, doing the Green Hornet and all these things. So Bruce Lee was just phenomenal. And, you know, then his movies, The Enter the Dragon, you know, he wrote that script and just did everything in there. So it was no stunt guys. It was all him. And his mind, you know, he always say, you know, be like water. Whatever you put water in, it becomes the shape. Yeah. You know, put water in the cup, it becomes the shape of the cup. So you say, be like water, my friend. So, and that was it for me, you know, because he had backed up everything that he said. You know, he's one of the greatest philosophers in the world, and he wrote about it. And then he took karate, you know, the natural form of karate, you know, Tai Chi's and all that stuff. And he created not only karate, but judo and all these other things. So he studied the art of martial arts, and then he created Jeet Kune Do, which was his style of fighting. And he called it fighting without fighting, you know, so just amazing. So he was great influence, and if you want to say hero, I would say it started with Bruce Lee.
Having that martial art mentality and winning the second place in 1992 Junior Nationals, could you, in that moment, envision yourself becoming what you are today?
Yeah, I could envision it because I saw it before it actually happened. Yeah. You know,
could you kind of walk me through this?
Well, I mean, it started off with martial arts, you know. I dove into martial arts probably when I was about 10 years old, when my father died. Started reading all the Bruce Lee books and his way and his philosophy and his way of thinking. So that way of thinking, I was discovering the power of the mind, right? And how the mind works, you know, whatever you believe you can achieve, you know. So visualization and all of these things started, I started understanding it and applying it to my life to help me overcome the loss of my father, you know. So that was replaced with the philosophies and the mind power and everything, creating your future and painting that picture that you, whatever you want in life, it actually happens. So started studying martial arts with my brothers, and then I started learning how to, you know, I went to class, I went to school, and I studied Jeet Kune Do, I studied karate. I went to Kim's Karate in Glen Burnie, Maryland, studied under Master Kim, and I learned from Apollo. Apollo's a friend of mine. He was like a master. So I did that for a long, long time until I started developing and realizing that I was getting bigger from doing all of the movements from martial arts. And then I started applying weightlifting to the martial arts.
To the routine.
And then I realized that I was able to put on a lot of weight fast, but the weight that I was putting on was slowing me down with my kicks and my forms and martial arts movements, you know, because you have to be flexible. You have to be quick and fast. You can't be so big. So at that point, I made a decision to get into working out, and I started studying bodybuilding. You know, I joined a local gym, and a friend of mine taught me how to work out. And then I was still doing martial arts, right? But then I was doing training with weights. You know, before weights, I was doing push-ups, sit-ups, all this stuff. Yeah, just calisthenics. Yes. Then I got into weightlifting, and I found out that I was naturally strong. Not naturally strong, like just had this natural strength. It came easy. So I went to a powerlifting meet. And I
in Maryland.
In Maryland, Baltimore, Maryland. Got into the meet. I was probably about 20 years old back then. And I won. I was 185 pounds. I got in a 185-pound class. I don't know what that is in kilos or whatever. All natural. And I bench pressed 415 pounds. Yeah. You know. So that was pretty phenomenal. Yeah. And I actually won.
180 kilos.
Yeah. So that day was a bodybuilding event there, and I didn't even know what that was. And he says, "You probably can beat these guys." And I says, "What's this? What are they doing?" He says, "Well, you know, the bodybuilding." I said, "Well, what's that? What do you do?" He says, "Well, you know, they go on stage and they start posing." And I said, "Posing? Well, I don't know what that is." So I was looking at them, what they were doing, and when they were coming in, and I was looking at them, and I said, "Man, I think I might be able to beat these guys." So I took my clothes off. He went to the store, Sears and Roebuck. He brought a pair of red underwear, and I shaved all the hair off of my body. I had like 40 minutes before the show started. And he signed me up, and I shaved all the hair off. I didn't have a posing routine, and I went on stage. I didn't know what I was doing, and I won. I was like, wow, it's easy. So then I went back to the gym, and I had to make a decision if it's a career in martial arts, right, where you don't make any money. Back then, martial arts, it wasn't like MMA now. It didn't even exist. Yeah. Those guys made no money. And then I said, well, bodybuilding. So I had to pick and choose. So I started training and eating like a bodybuilder, but with the martial arts mentality of where the mind goes. You know, the body, all of these things. Yeah. So I applied that to my training as a bodybuilder. And I think the pain and suffering and being able to just challenge yourself to do things that was never been done before and new heights and stuff. So I just saw my body just growing and growing and growing. And next thing I know, I was at the Nationals 2 years later. At the Nationals, and I turned pro, and nobody even knew who I was. So it happened pretty quick.
Once you told to the audience that turning point in your career was the meeting with Jim Manion after the Nationals, and the message he conveyed to you. If you can go back in time and just recall for us what was going on in your head after this conversation.
Well, after that conversation, you know, like I felt like it's God, right? Because I never had the only man I had a relationship with was my father. And Jimmy told me that after, you know, 10 years of working and
in industry,
figuring it out, And I went to the juniors and Jim Manion. I knew who he was. He didn't know who I was. And he saw the potential in me, and he came backstage and he says, you know, you should come to the Nationals. I think you can win. And I said, really? I looked at him and I said, like, really? He says, yeah. And I was like, wow. And that was what it took for me to snap, right? I snapped and I said, you know what? It's my opportunity to seize the moment, right? You seize the moment. And my confidence level shot through the roof. I didn't care about the pain and suffering because I could almost endure anything. And I applied myself 1,000% for the next 4 months. And I went and I won the Nationals. And when I won the Nationals, again, it was the quickest rise to professional status that had ever happened in the sport because nobody knew who I was. And I just went on to, I was winning all these shows and nobody knew who I was on the pro level until the magazines came out. You know, and my second pro show was the Night of Champions. I won that in New York City. Yeah. And I was an amateur in 1990. you know, and then I was a pro in 1991. It happened like that. You know, I was Mr. Merlin in 1990, and then next thing you know, in 1991, I'm a professional athlete. It was like nobody in Baltimore, Maryland ever turned pro before. They said, you got to move to California. And I said, all you got to do is be good. So I knew at that point, again, the power of the brain, right? Visualization, whatever you believe you can achieve. And I strongly believe that. So I applied that to my my whole career.
Yeah. No coach, no team. Learning by looking and observation back in the days. DIY in the early 90s compared to today. What people have in front of them. There's a team of people. You have a trainer. You have a nutritionist. You have a psychologist next to your side.
Today?
Yeah. How was back in the day? I mean, how you actually figured the way out? I mean, realizing what the nutrition is, what the proper training is, what the supplements to take.
Trial and error.
Yeah.
You know, that's like if you would tell me that Albert Einstein had someone to teach him to be Albert Einstein. That's false. He had that gift to where when Albert Einstein was, you know, growing up, they thought that he was mentally retarded because of the way he acted and the certain things that he done. And he was a very, very messy kid and everything was in disorder, but he had a gift and he found his gift because he wasn't trying to be like anybody else. No one else was trying to mold him. He molded himself and challenged himself. And this is when you find your full potential. You know, again, if you want to go back to like Bruce Lee, you know, Bruce Lee probably had a mentor, but nobody taught Bruce Lee how to create a style or anything. That was just him becoming who he was because he was free to create. I think today people aren't free to create because they don't know what that is. They try to be like other people. They try to mimic like other people. And they copy from other people. And most of the coaches out there never did anything.
You are known as an uncrowned king, Mr. Olympia. In my book, you are Mr. Olympia.
Thank you. Why do you say that?
Because I'll tell you why. I think you're the only human being on planet Earth that can unify 3 eras in bodybuilding. So Lee Haney, 9 championships, then Dorian 6, then Ronnie Coleman 8. And through all these years, you were around. You were there competing with Lee Haney on his last tournament when he retired. Then throughout the Dorian career, and you also compete with Ronnie. So in my book, you are a true champion.
Yeah, well, thank you. Correction on that one, though, okay? Lee Haney, I never competed with him. He was just retiring. Dorian Yates was with Lee Haney, and when Lee Haney retired, Dorian stepped on the scene. So it was Dorian Yates, it was Ronnie Coleman era, and then, yeah, I did come back with the Phil Heath era. So, yeah, those... But I never looked at it like that. The longevity,
exactly,
of the through the sport. Yeah. Thanks for putting it like that. Kind of makes sense.
Did you experience this, and how did you experience this transition from classic harmony that Lee Haney kind of exhibits, and through the Dorian's mass monster era?
Yeah.
It seems that your physique was somewhere in the middle, combining best of both worlds. How did you really experience this transition?
Well, the transition happened for me when my first Olympia was 1992. I was 200 and maybe 30 pounds, you know, 226, 230. Dorian Yates was next to me. I think he was probably high 230s, maybe, you know, maybe. But he was, you know, he was there. And then the next year I seen him, he got bigger. So I had to transition and I had to get bigger because he had won the Olympia. And then he had brought a different package back to the Olympia.
Yeah.
And I knew what he was doing. So for me, I figured in order to be competitive, you must gain some more muscle. So I gained more muscle. And as he changed, or as my competitors, whoever I was competing with, changed, I was able to add more muscle or lose more muscle and go against them like that. You know, I'll give you an example. Dorian Yates was 240, 250, 260 on stage, right? Anywhere between that at Olympia. So I knew in order for me to be compatible with him, I had to be 240 some, at least 240 something. I couldn't stand next to him, smaller. So that was a number that I had for him, 240s. I think it worked best for me because my waist was smaller. I could pose better. I was able to show my lines and still have size, right? So if he was off, then I felt like, boom, you know, I could get him, which he was off in 1994. 1994, he was off, and they really wouldn't let me get next to them because that was the year he tore his bicep in 1994. And you could see that his conditioning was off and everything was off, and his body didn't have the lines like me and Sean Ray did. You know, we were fluent. You could see the balance, you know. Dorian never had that. Dorian would always win off of graininess and hardness. Well, this day he didn't have it because he had tore his bicep a couple weeks before, and I think that affected him. And then in 2000, well, when Dorian retired, and in 2000, Ronnie kind of came on the scene, and as he was getting bigger and bigger, right, there were moments where I had to put on some more size. And depending on, like, if there was Flex Wheeler, when I had to go against him, I think it was a 96 Arnold Classic. I knew that Flex Wheeler had this beautiful physique, and I also knew that I had a nice physique that was shape, symmetry, and everything. So in order for me to get him, I had to have all of this shape, size, and symmetry and come in heavier, like bigger, more muscles, and still have that presentation. So for that show, I came 257. So I was able to outmass him and still have that class, you know, the shape and the charisma. So that's how I beat him. So it was always depending on my opponents. I would adjust my training and my nutrition to bodybuilding. For me, is like playing a game of chess. You have to know your body, and nobody can master your body more than you, right? So there's things that a coach can't teach you. A coach is not living within you. A coach doesn't know what's the best protein source for you. I know what's the best protein source for me, and I know what's going to happen when I start eating that source of protein, and so on and so forth, like things like that. I know that I can't eat white rice. I can, but I would rather not eat the brown rice either, because I know when I eat sweet potatoes, right, my body just looks different.
Responds well.
Yeah. I know that I can't diet on steak, which these guys do today, because steak for me just gives me that, I don't like that look, so I would diet on fish. It's very asparagus. Yeah, I would get thin skin, ripped and shredded from dieting on fish. Most people don't want to diet on fish because there's a mental thing that you're tapping into again, right? That most people don't want to suffer in today's sport. Most people, they don't enjoy the suffering. So for me, a coach can't teach you suffering. Suffering is something that you're willing to endure. Yeah. And being an athlete at that level, I mastered my body on all levels, the mental level, the food level, the response level. I knew exactly how many calories I needed to eat to do with it. I know how much rest I needed to take. I know how many times, hours or whatever it is, rest and recovery, caloric intake, all of that stuff. I mastered that because, again, I was applying the method to the martial arts, right? Into creating becoming full in who you are, right? So I think that that's what people try to copy what they see, but inside there's a lot of stuff going on, you know, so that like, oh man, he's posing like that on stage, but they don't understand that when I'm posing, I'm visiting places in my mind. I never had a posing routine. I always made it up on stage because I wanted to be in the moment, right? Like we're talking now in the moment. Like we didn't go over
of energy.
Yeah, we didn't go over these questions. I have no idea what you're going to ask me. So my response isn't a fake one. It's right.
Genuine.
It's not rehearsed.
Sure.
And you can tell when somebody is rehearsed what they're doing and whether it's just authentic. So for me, I think that's what people gravitate towards, and it's just something different, but they can't put their finger on it. What is it? But that's what it is. Speaking
about 1994, if I can wave a magic wand for you and make you Mr. Olympia, would it be 1994 against Dorian and Sean, or 2000 against Ronnie? What would you choose?
I wouldn't choose any of them, to be honest with you. Because if I had won the Olympia in 92, I would have quit. Because that was my goal. I only do things to accomplish the goal, right? Not to continue. Once you hit that mountain peak, then I believe, okay, I've accomplished that, and it's on to the next task. So for me, if I had to turn pro in 92, I would have quit. If I had to turn pro in 94, I would have done, because it would have been no more challenge for me. Or 2000, I would have stopped. There would have never been a comeback, and there probably would have never been Levrone Signature Series or anything, because I would have never had a reason to dig deeper, right? Yeah. So I think that. I think because I was robbed from some titles that I really feel like I should have won, it created, I found my purpose, you see? So a lot of times what you want isn't always what God wants. He'll put roadblocks and use other people to push you in a further direction. And I see that now, because everything that happened makes sense to me now. And if I had won Mr. Olympia, I wouldn't be in this position I am today. So I'd much rather be in this position today, have my fans call me the uncrowned king, and have one of the most successful supplement companies in the world amongst my peers and my colleagues and everything. I mean, it parlays over into everything, right? So when you think your life is falling apart, it's falling into place for a greater purpose.
Sure. When I hear you would quit, in a sense, I kind of, the question pops in my mind. Maybe whoever was to choose, maybe we're saying Kevin was no business, because we want someone who want to keep on competing for 6-8 years.
They never knew that. They never knew that. See, God knew it. I knew it, but that wasn't the plan for me, right? I never regret anything. I don't have any regrets, because it led me to my mindset now, you know. And if I had won in 92, I wouldn't be sitting here probably, you know. So I can't even think about if something would have, should have, could have happened, because the direction and the path that it happened, I'm glad about that.
How did the road to Olympia VHS tapes change the industry back in the days? Now we are speaking, you know, we're in digital era. Mm-hmm. Everything is available, YouTube, Instagram. But, you know, having these tapes and tap into behind the scenes for the very first time in the bodybuilding industry?
I think it developed more. People were waiting on the edge of their seats to see the photos from the Mr. Olympia, to see what someone looked like, right? You had to go to that event to see it that day. And you have to wait for the magazines 3 months later to be distributed around the world in order to see it. I think because of this, people were more excited. You had more superstars that were untouchable, because these guys were all in the USA, you know, and the whole world would wait around to see, what's happening. So they'd buy all the magazines. I think for creating, you know, we were kind of like superstars, you know. Arnold, Lou Ferrigno, Lee Haney, all of us, that era, it's different now. Because now when you make yourself accessible to the public every day, all day long, all the time, there's nothing mystical or mystery about it. So I think that's gone. As you can see now, the Mr. Olympias are constantly changing hands, right? I asked Joe Weider, I said, why does the Mr. Olympia keep winning 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 times? He says, because I have to create something that has never been done before. And if my Mr. Olympia lose, then he will just be like every other competitor in every other sport, right? So what he created was that aura around whoever won the Mr. Olympia. It was almost like that guy was like a god, right? Like, dang, he won 8 Mr. Olympias right in a row. He won 6 right in a row. What is so the mystery about this guy? What's so different about him? So people's minds were just so intrigued when they saw that guy. They're like, oh my God, what's so different? So Joe Weider was a master at
creating this.
Yeah, that's what he created. So if I was to ask you who was the last 5 Mr. Olympias, do you know who they were? Yeah. So point answer, right? So the good part about this whole time where we are now is we're able to talk to our fans. I can put something on social media.
It's instantly there.
And the whole world will see it.
Yeah.
I can communicate with everyone and say, hey, right now I'm in Serbia doing an amazing podcast. Hold my phone up, go live, check it in, and there's hundreds of thousands of people that's going to see it.
As a matter of fact, I compliment on your photos from today.
Oh, thank you.
Great shape.
So that's the good thing about it. You know, amazing if you want to make money and contact with everybody around the world and bring them into your home, you can do that. And I think it's allowed a platform for our sport to grow, globally grow, become very, very mainstream, because it's not just about hardcore bodybuilding now. It's about just everyone is involved. Men's physique, wellness, you know, with women, you have classic physique. You have many divisions that are obtainable, right? Yeah. To the basic public, you know, Chris Bumstead, like, you know, amazing. Everybody loves the way he looks, and it's just, and I think far as the marketing, far as the social media, far as the hands-on and being able to create that, what they've done, I think it's just phenomenal. People always say, well, you know, it's too many divisions. Well, no, it's not. You know, there's so many, there's a division for every body type. Back then, it was just hardcore bodybuilding. Yeah. You know, we were the freaks. We were the ones that were untouchable. We were like the gods. We were like the, oh my God. So that was like, whoa. When we showed up, it was just, oh my God, people go crazy. Now it's more family-oriented, mainstream. You know, the Mr. Olympia walks in the room. It's no big deal because there's so many different classes. Everybody has a Mr. Olympia now. There's so many other Mr. Olympia, boy shorts, Mr. Olympia, bodybuilder, Mr. Olympia, physique, you know, all these things, right? It's just at a different level. I'm not going to say it's negative because it's not. It's just at a more mainstream, different level. Kind of curious where it'll happen 10 years from now, where it'll go.
Do you feel that athletes and competitors back in your days got the fair share of what the industry was making back in days? Because I just remember you saying that you were actually hiding that you got this major injury, the torn of your chest muscle, and a lot of stress and agony you went through trying to hide this and prepare in less than, what, 100 days? Yeah. So, I mean, of course it was worth it, but what I'm saying is, and asking, do you feel that you guys got a fair share in terms of contracts and funds?
Yeah, of course. Yeah. we probably made more money than the guys make today. Yeah, we were underneath the umbrella, a moving machine. We knew where we had to be a year from now, 12 months from now. I knew exactly what my schedule was. I knew exactly how many guest appearances I had, right? I knew exactly. It was
quite predictable, huh?
Yeah, huh?
It was quite predictable.
For us, yeah. I knew exactly where I was supposed to be, and it was, my whole program was laid out for us. That was Weider athletes. Joe Weider, you're talking about someone who built the empire of bodybuilding, health and fitness. His vision was, he's the guy that brought Arnold Schwarzenegger over here from Austria. If it wasn't for Joe Weider, nobody would know even who Arnold Schwarzenegger is. Terminator and all those things was created, I'm going to say, mainly with Joe Weider's help, because Joe Weider had the power of the magazines. And he was able to take Arnold Schwarzenegger, put him on the cover of every Weider magazine around the world, you know, on the cover. And back then, you guys had no way of knowing what's happening with bodybuilding, only through the magazines, you know. It wasn't the movie Hollywoods. It was, so Joe Weider created that, and his vision was phenomenal. So when I came in as a Weider athlete, he taught us how to pose. He gave us points on posing. So if you were an athlete, a contracted athlete, you better know how to pose. You better know how to speak and represent the brand. You need to know your workouts. We would write articles for the magazines every month. We do 6 or 7 guest appearances every month. I mean, every year. We had to be in shape, you know, so we had to do articles for the magazine, photo shoots before the show, photo shoots after the show, meetings in Woodland Hills, you know, twice a year with Joe Weider, and he would evaluate all of us at the end of every year. Then he would look and say, okay, you competed in 7 shows over in Europe, Kevin. You won all 7 shows, right? I got second in Olympia. Okay, I went and I won all of these shows. So, you know, that looked really good on paper. So you were able to get raises and everything. The amount of money we made, second place in Olympia was $50,000. I'd go on a European tour, you know, and that tour lasted about 2 weeks. Each one of those shows was from $30,000 to $70,000. So you do the math, right?
Yeah, back in the days.
Yeah, I remember going into Russia in 1994, and I won $70,000. So, and I would do 8 shows a year, maybe sometimes 7 or 8 shows a year. That's just show money. And then you had your contract money. I was one of the highest paid Weider athletes, you know, so you got that guaranteed check coming in. Just show up, don't get in any trouble, you know, boom, 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 boom. And then in my contract, I had pages. I would get a page, Flex Magazine, a page of Flex Magazine where I could sell my DVDs, my T-shirts, or anything that I had, you know, and I had that in my contract. So I made a Maryland Muscle Machine workout tape. I made a full-blown 2000, you know, VHS tape. They sold, you know. And I remember then I had an idea. I said, well, Joey, I know how to sell more. I know how we could sell more more magazines. And he was like, what? So then I went in the studio and I started writing music with my band. And I put on the cover of a Flex magazine that had me on the cover. And I talked Joe Weider into putting one of my CDs in there, right? Yeah. And it sold like an extra 200,000. So that was pretty cool. So I was able to say, oh, well, I came out with an album and I sold 200,000 in a month. That was like pretty phenomenal, right?
Marketing 101.
Yeah. So it was many ways that we could make money as athletes if you're at the top, right? Yeah. So all those things aren't there today, right? Yeah. There's no European tours. Nobody's making workout training videos. Everybody's doing everything online for free. Nobody's out really doing guest posings. Oh, I forgot to tell you about guest posings.
Please.
Yeah, we had guest posing events. So, and then you got the seminars and everything. So, you know, it was incredible moments, man. I think a whole lot of people going to lost their train of thought when they just heard that, because people think bodybuilding, how do you make money, right? So I just showed you that it's opportunities are there. You have to be willing to step out of the comfort zone. And a lot of guys, even today, they just compete in one show after they train for a whole year, compete in one show and go home. Like, that doesn't even make sense, right? So
yeah, but trying to keep up on the highest level possible back in the days, and you know, him pushing you and other guys to be on the tip of your toes 365. How is this working for you? Knowing Joe either?
No, you had an opportunity to push. For me, I loved it. I didn't have to go on tours. They would call me up and say, Kevin, do you want to go on tours? I said, yeah, put me on tours. I'm already in shape. A lot of guys didn't want to go on tours because those tours were very, very grueling. I just flew here, 13 hours? Crazy. I don't know what it was. I ate watermelon. I had nothing to eat. That's fine. I ain't no dinner or nothing. I don't care about it because I'm okay, right? So I've learned how to do all these. Right now, for the Levrone Signature Series, we visit, it'll be 15 countries this year. Last year's probably that or more. I've been doing that for like 11 years straight. That's not normal. Most bodybuilders can't even do that.
Exactly.
But they don't even want to do it because they can't handle it and they don't know how to take that approach. So for me, I've been doing this since 1992, traveling, going to 6 or 7 different countries, you know, competing. Yeah. That's grueling. We would do 2 or 3 shows a week with a body fat at 2.7 and not eating no food. So it's like a lot of guys couldn't make it out there. And you see, I'm the only one now today who is actually doing tours the way I do, rapidly like this. You know, so again, I went on the tours because I knew I should have won in one of those Miss Olympias. They didn't give it to me. So you know what I'm going to do now? I'm going to go out and win every show in the world, and I'm going to show the judges, and I'm going to show all the people that I should have won that Mr. Olympia. So that's what I did. I had a point to prove. They pissed me off, so I said, okay, I'm going to go win every show in the world. And that's what I would do every year, 14 years straight. I'll tell you another thing. Like, the shows that I won, and I competed, I won 24 shows. And out of all those 24 shows, 5 of those shows are only in America.
All were international,
2
overseas.
Arnold Classics, 1 Night of the Champion, and 2 San Francisco Pro shows. That's it, 5 out of 14 years. #1 in the USA. The rest of them were Spain, Italy, Germany, France, Holland, Czech Republic, you know, Prague, all of these countries, Germany. So again, you had said, I told you I would have stopped, but God had a greater plan, because now, guess what? Now I'm on tour for my supplement company and I already had my feet in the ground. So this thing was going in a direction, right, that I didn't even notice. It was just pushing me to where we are now. Because when we started Levrone Signature Series, getting to the supplements, I was already familiar. The Germans, I was 4-time Mr. German. I won a German championship 4 times. I had won in 1994 Mr. Russia. First bodybuilder ever won in Russia and competed and won was me back in the day. You know, so these countries had already heard of me. They were familiar with me because they'd seen me, right? And none of the other bodybuilders would go. Sean Ray would never go on tour. You know, there were times when Flex would go, but Flex wouldn't finish the tours. You know, he would maybe do 2 shows and come home. You know, a lot of the guys, Ronnie Coleman went on tour with me now. You know, Ronnie's a tough dude, and you see it in him now. You know, the guy don't quit. He just keeps going and coming and coming. And, you know, Dorian never went on tours. So it's like, wow, okay. So I kind of, you see what was happening then, it's paying off for me now. So that's why I said I don't ever regret anything that happened, because when you think something is falling apart, it's actually falling in place for a greater purpose. So I'm able to be who I am now because of what I went through. And you can't learn that from a coach. You learn that from yourself, because you're so passionate about being good at what you do.
It seems you tap into a source of motivation second to none.
I think so, yeah. You know, and then when I'm standing with all the fans, and you know, I see a piece of me in each and every person that I talk to. You know, whether it's their life, their working out, or whatever. It's like everyone has an interesting story that motivates me, you know, and that's why I love going on the road now.
There's a theory saying that when we are able to see a piece of us in every single human being, that's where we stop judging people.
Yeah.
What they do.
Yeah. Well, this is the first time I've actually broken it down, how bodybuilders back in the day made money. See, people don't realize that. And, you know, you have Joe Weider, who was a visionary, who I met. Like, these kids today, they don't even know who he is. If you ask a lot of them, they don't even know who Joe Weider is, but they have an IFBB Pro card from a federation that he created. You know, so when I met Joe Weider, I thought it was phenomenal, because I wanted to know how did you create this dynasty? Where did your thoughts come from? You know, and how this man thoughts created this sport. The Mr. Olympia, the Universe, Mr. Universe, Flex Magazine, Muscle and Fitness, Home and Guard Magazine. He owned Home and Guard Magazine too.
Amazing.
Muscle and Fitness, hers, right? So many things. So I was like, my questions to him was, you know, how did you do this? How did you start the magazines? How did you, you know? And it was amazing just sitting talking to him. He was just so incredible. And yeah, so learning from him and wanting to you know, have his approval of, man, you're doing a great job, Kevin. And I said, Joe, you know, how come you never let me win the Mr. Olympia? He said, it's not that you're not good enough to win the Mr. Olympia. He said, but if I take you, Sean Ray,
or
Flex, right? You probably heard me say it. And put you in first, Sean, whatever, and you, Sean, and y'all switch around.
Randomly.
Nothing's going to change. Sport's just going to be okay. But if I take Dorian, who opens up that whole market somewhere, right, in Europe, because we hadn't had a European champion in many years. It was Lee Haney for 8 years. Yeah. And that's what happened. You know, you would go to the Miss Olympia, and I would hear all these bullhorns, and the Brits would come in, and that drove me nuts. But he was right. You know, I couldn't create that. Sean couldn't create that. We couldn't create that. And he says, I tell you what I'll do. I'll put you on the 62nd edition of Muscle and Fitness, which he did. It was my first cover on Muscle and Fitness. You know, Joe Weider, you know, I mean, he didn't put people of darker skin on Muscle and Fitness, because Muscle and Fitness was more mainstream. He even knew that too, right? Muscle and Fitness was more of a wholesome magazine, you know, for the family. You know what Muscle and Fitness looked like. So why would you take a black guy like Lee Haney or these big muscle guys and put them on Muscle Fitness? No, it wasn't that kind of a place. And he put me on the cover of Muscle and Fitness. And the pose was actually this pose for the Levrone Signature Series. So I took this and I made the logo of, you know, that. It's a classic pose, 62nd edition. And, you know, when I had those answers, in life, all we need is answers. When we're searching for things and something doesn't make sense, sometimes you can destroy yourself. But when Joe said, it's not that you're not good enough, you are good enough. But Dorian does this. And I was like, okay, wow, I can't do that. So I understood him as a businessman. And he showed me he loved and cared for me. And by him saying, you are good enough. And he put me on the cover of 62nd Muscle and Fitness. I was like, wow. I had so much respect for him, you know? And it was about like, you're already in shape, focus on business, and go out and be a businessman with the physique that you have and go win all the shows you can. And that's what I did.
You really found the peace in that sentence.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
There's a very famous reel or video these days about you talking about Ronnie Coleman experience with vodka. Mm-hmm. And I was just about to ask you about your relationship with alcohol. Do you think that if your relationship with alcohol was any different, would that change the way the overall outcome was for you?
No, I mean, I was never an alcoholic, you know what I mean? I just, I enjoyed performing, you know, and I think sometimes, and it's a proven fact, you know, when Ronnie Coleman, he was too serious, you know, he was too serious. And I was like, you know.
Like a stressed out, right?
It's just sometimes you can overdo things.
Oh, sure.
If you're in a relationship and you're constantly being a nag as to your partner, just too much. You know, sometimes you get more results when you just sit back and you wait for things to happen naturally, right? Mm. And I knew it because Ronnie competed 7 years and never even placed in the Mr. Olympia. He wouldn't crack the top 10. He would go on tour with us, and he always get dead last. Would never place nowhere. Mm. And he would show up, and he'd be walking around with his water. He'd be eating all of his food. He'd be catching a train because he didn't have a weeder contract, right? So he had to pay his own way. And I remember saying, why do you keep doing this? You're not even placing. He said, because I love the sport. And I was like, wow, you know. And but I knew that sometimes you can have too much love for something and you destroy it because you smother it, right? Like, I have a son, I love him, but I have to back up and let him
keep the distance, yeah.
Yeah, if I be a helicopter father and push. So when you push and push and push, and this is what I saw Ronnie doing, it was too much. So he came to my room and I gave him some vodka. And that was the turning point, I think, because he was able to relax and he looked like a different person. Looked like a different person, and his whole body just changed the next day. So I had beat him. I had beat him 6 times in a row. Yeah. So what changed for him to come into his self, right? It was the fact that I was able to get him to relax. And when he relaxed, all the water left his body. And nobody ever beat Ronnie Coleman since. He went on to beat me in the USA when we got back at the Night of Champions. And after that, he went and he won the Mr. Olympia and kept winning and kept winning and kept winning. I think sometimes, you know, when you're of anything, there's use and there's abuse, right? Yeah. To feel the crowd, to get into the crowd, I'd probably take a shot of, whether it's a glass of wine. They always tell you, take a glass of wine and it's coming up as an amateur, because wine dilates it's a vasodilator, right? Yeah. And more blood can get into the area as you're pumping up. You're going to relax and you're going to, you know, your muscles are going to get full and you're going to start feeling good, and the music, boom. And so it just puts you where you need to be. So that was part of the preparation regime. And then also it's like, if you feel like you're getting hungry as a bodybuilder and you're out on the road competing, for me, it's a trick. It was like, I didn't need to eat pizza. Those guys would go eat food. They would eat carbs and they would eat all of these things. So when my blood sugar levels started dropping, I didn't need carbs. I didn't need that. There's
this famous story about Flex Wheeler and McDonald's go through for 3 times in a row.
Yeah. So for me, I would just have a glass of wine and it would
do the trick.
It would fix that for me. And my cravings would be gone and I'd go out and compete.
You mentioned Arnold Schwarzenegger. How was your relationship with Arnold and how this helped you?
Arnold gave me my first opportunity to come back after my pec tear, you know, my pec injury. Called me up and they invited me to come to the Arnold Classic in 1994. I think I went and I won that show, and I asked Arnold, how did he get into the movies, right? And he says, you know, don't worry. And I went home and I never heard from him until 2 weeks later. I was in my gym and I walked in and they said, you got a message here. It was Arnold Schwarzenegger's assistant. She had called. And I saw a note that said, call Arnold's assistant. And I called. And he invited me out on a movie set in the End of Days, right? He was making End of Days back then. You remember that movie?
Yeah, sure.
And I spent some time with him, and I asked him how did you get into acting and all this stuff. So I spent some time with him in the trailer, and met Walter Von Huny, who was his acting coach, who I'm friends with Walter now. So Arnold said, go out, buy these books, and do all of these things. And when you do all of these things, contact me again. So it took me a year to do all that studying. And then he says, okay, now take these lessons from this acting coach in California, you know. And I sold my gym, and I went all in 2006, and I moved to California, and I applied myself to everything that he was telling me. He met with Walter and studied acting there in Hollywood on the Boulevard for about 4 years, and I got that movie Red Line, and produced Ghost in the Whale. It's a film called Ghost in the Whale with Maurice Bernard. I produced that. And Backlash with G. Anthony Joseph. I Am with Kiko, the guy that was in Bad Boys. He was one of the main actors in that film. So it was a good experience. And then I found out, you know, I was going to be a father. So I had to leave all those dreams behind. It was one of the greatest things that could ever happen.
You never officially retired yourself after the...
now I have, yeah.
That's the question. I mean, the first part of the question would be, what were you trying to accomplish with the comeback 2016?
I just had some things deep down inside of me that I had to go back to the stage and revisit. Because I'd never retired, never announced my retirement. And 15 years later, I just said, you know, this is really bugging me. Let's see if I can make a comeback. And I made a decision to compete without even training for 15 years. Yeah. And I tried it. I got dead last at the Olympia, but I think that was one of my best Olympias I've ever did, because it was the first Mr. Olympia that I ever got a standing ovation at, and I looked like crap. So that was like, wow.
What was going through your head?
Nothing. Just, it felt good to get that out.
The appreciation.
Yeah. You know the Rocky movie, he said, when you have something in the basement, remember, there's a trainer, it's like, Rock, I think you got something in the basement. Got a little in the basement. And so Rocky had some things in life he had to deal with. So it was some things that I had to deal with, you know, that I had left on that Olympia stage, and I had to revisit it and just get it out. So that's what happened, and I didn't do it. Pushed the supplement brand along. I wasn't even thinking about it. Matter of fact, my partner told me, don't do it. You're going to destroy the brand. I didn't listen. And it ended up being one of the greatest, again, one of the greatest Olympias I've ever could possibly think of, because I think it paralleled everything from that, you know. I was just being upfront and honest with myself. And I think when you do, you touch so many other people. And I think that show, I touched so many other people, because I could have quit. I could have said, you know, I don't look like the way I want to look, or I could have quit. But I showed perseverance no matter what. It's not about what's going on the outside. It's about making the effort. And my fans were able to see me from within who I was as a human being. And I think I connected with another whole generation.
What we can expect from Kevin Levrone in the near future, kind of short to mid-term goals. Are you ever going to officially retire and just
done. I'm done that. I'll just continue to, I don't know, just be me and tell people, trust and believe in yourself no matter what you're going through, you know, because I've been through almost 90%, 75% of what someone else is going through, I think. So just hold on, you know, and be that guy that help people.
I'm not convinced. I think we're going to see you again as some kind of competition.
No way. No way. No, never. Competition for life, competition to save souls, competition to help people, make the world a better place, because I think it's too much pain and suffering and ignorance and wars and stuff going on. And I think when we travel around the world with the Levrone Signature Series, we're able to go into countries where people will say, you know, you're crazy for going in there or whatever, but we show them that, you know, unless you break bread with people, you can't judge them. You know, never judge anyone unless you've walked a mile in his moccasins.
Sure, yeah.
Oh, great spirit, grant that. Do not criticize my neighbor until I've walked a mile in his moccasins. And most people won't walk in somebody else's shoes. They'll sit back and judge by what they see, but they have no idea of the journey that human being went through. So for my thing, I just want to tell people, hang in there, you know. Your life has a greater purpose than what people see.
Thank you so much for your time spending with us here at Spotlight Podcast.
Thank you, brother.